Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Save World, Make Art. My name is Eugene Clark, and I am on the Zoom with a good friend of mine and co-host, Matt Faulkner. How are you, Matt?
I'm good, Eugene. How are you?
Hey, good. So we usually record a little bit later in the day. It's early, but look at us. We're like spring chickens.
Yeah,
We can just bounce right out of bed and jump into a Zoom to talk about art. What are we going to talk about today, Mr. Faulkner?
First of all, March Madness and Michigan.
Yes, it is true. Let's take a moment of pause.
Yeah.
And we're back. All right.
All right. So today we are going to get right into talking some more about our heroes. Can you share who your hero is, Eugene?
Yes, Antoine Louis Barye. And he is a sculptor.
All right. I'm going to go right to sharing the screen so we can see our heroes. Oops.
Awesome. So I just have a couple pieces, 3 pieces. 2 of them are terracotta, and then there's one that is a more finished piece. It's actually plaster, but it looks like bronze. So this particular one is terracotta. And the thing that we find out about Barye is that he was really in tune or in touch with nature, specifically wildlife. And so his whole thing was to really, through his observations and through drawing, to then translate in sculpture these amazing moments that, you would only be able to experience if you were in the presence of these animals. And so as you can see here, we have a snarling jaguar, to feel as if you're just coming up and happen upon this jaguar. So maybe you surprised him through hiking, and this is the moment that you would experience. What I love about his terracotta is that I gravitate towards it like I do artists' sketchbooks. It's like you get to see a piece that was virtually just a study for a longer term piece. And so these pieces that you're showing are actually in the collection of the Detroit Institute of Arts. And I sort of grew up looking at these works and became more and more not only fascinated with the artist, but more and more fans of these pieces. I feel like when I go to the museum and see pieces over a long period of time, like, 20, 30 years, and you're visiting it over and over and you're sketching from it, you really just start to have conversations with the piece and the artist through their work. And I feel that here because, I teach gesture and I teach figure drawing and I teach how do you keep this freshness in your line and your brush strokes when you're painting. This is the clay version of that.
Mm. All right, let me toss in another one of his.
All right. Yes, so this is a more finished piece, and I'm not sure what material this particular one is, but he did have pieces where he would cast them in plaster and then create a patina where it would look like they could be some other material. And so, this actually is one I'm not familiar with. I think this was a different one than a title that I was thinking of. But that being said, it does resemble the one that we were just looking at. And therefore, you could imagine how that study would then lead to a more finished piece like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. That's on me.
No, that's okay.
This one, you asked for jaguar, and I found jaguar walking. So sorry about that.
Nice. Jaguar walking. So this piece really propelled him into the world knowledge of him as an artist. He showed this piece in Paris way back when. This is the piece I was talking about. It's cast in plaster and then patinaed to look like bronze or some other material. And so it's showing the jaguar in action with the alligator or crocodile, and the struggle that's ensuing when two creatures like that have a moment that we never get to experience unless we're, happen to be there seeing this happen. How do you know what this looks like? And I think as an artist, to visually interpret that in this media, I think that was quite riveting to the art world.
Yeah. And where was this shown?
This was shown in Paris. It was like one of his, if not the first finished piece that was exhibited, that propelled him into the mind of the art world from then on. So it really sort of substantiated his claim that, hey, I'm here, get used to it.
Yeah. One of the other things, it's thank you for sharing him with us.
Yeah.
He did look familiar, and having spent some time in the DIA too, that, I was like, oh, when you said it, they were in the DIA. Yeah. One of the things too that I'm making up that this was probably around the late 1800s, 1880, 1890, something like that. Do you think?
Yeah. Yep.
So, prior to this, a lot of the drawing and the artwork that that it showed animal life also showed a kind of contempt for animal life because it didn't care about their anatomical structure,
Right.
or they didn't, I don't know, they didn't feel like it was as important for them to try to figure out that anatomy as it was man and woman's anatomy, and
Oh,
replicate
sure.
that and express that. So when I see this, I see somebody that's one of the revolutionary aspects about this, is here is a man who's saying this anatomy is just as important.
I totally agree. I think that he definitely elevated not only the anatomical importance of these creatures in this art form, but then picking moments like this where, I think that usually we romanticize. So, the piece just before this would be a more typical romanticized version of a jaguar. And here you're seeing, yeah. And so then when you're seeing this other one, it's almost like in a painting how we would show a battle scene and somebody getting stabbed because graphically there was a period where you wouldn't see violence in paintings. You would just see the soldiers standing there in their beautiful well pressed uniforms. You wouldn't see them actually going in for the kill. So I think it's the same way here, but just interpreted with animals.
Yeah, and another thing I see too is such a degree of understanding of the anatomy. These are so vastly different anatomies. The anatomy, okay, in the title of this, it calls the alligator a gavial,
Right.
tiger devouring a gavial. Okay, so
Right.
you know, um, there's such different anatomies, and yet the guy has complete mastery, from what I know, of these anatomies, that it's just like, it has become second nature for him to express what, for me, because I haven't studied them, which I believe he has to the degree that he has, I could pretend that I know how, like, I'm looking at the way the tendons and the muscles in the hind leg of the tiger are attached to like just that tendon right there, going from the I don't know, that's the hip bone or the knee bone of the lion down into the torso.
Yeah.
He knows this. The artist
Yes.
knows this to such a degree that it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
it's like a writer that knows the language, you know,
Absolutely.
he knows how to
I think,
manipulate the language and break the rules and mess with the rules because he knows the rules so well.
Yeah, and you can tell that he's had to do a little bit of exaggeration to really not only change the contour of each creature, because when you're in this struggle, your back is going to be arched a little bit more and your head's going to be tilted in or in a little bit, like those elements that present for us as a viewer that sense of uncomfortableness
Mhm.
through watching this. I think he achieved that very well.
Yeah, somebody said once too that sculpture is actually the art of exaggeration. You know,
Yeah, that's a good food for thought for sure.
yeah,
And I
trying.
try and get my students to think that way when they're drawing. One thing that I think I'm attracted I'm attracted to in this piece and some of his other works is, I showed earlier in one of our other podcasts a piece of mine where multiple figures were entwined. And what does that feel like if I'm trying to invent this fight scene? And so looking at this from the sculpture perspective, I learned so much about overlapping and and intertwining and that sort of thing.
Hmm. And then yeah, you can see too. I hadn't really thought about it, but it is one of the things when I step into a piece, um, the forepaws of the tiger are seem much a greater scale than the back paws.
Yeah.
Now, that could be also because of the photograph of the piece. Things get foreshortened when you take a photograph too. The stuff in the front looks bigger than the stuff in the back. But I have a
Yeah.
feeling like that's one of the points of exaggeration. They're ever so little bit larger than maybe they would be if these were actual beings. And in that way, the sculptor is bringing our attention to that aspect of this moment. Look over
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, you can look at the hind leg, of course. I want you to know what's going on in terms of the energy that's been put out by the tiger back there too. But really what I want you to consider is this aspect of it. So there's that. Here's one other thing too. The implication is more important. That the thing that's shown, which is not um, gory, is an implied gore, which is actually creepier than actual gore.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking about like it's the Alfred Hitchcock filmmaker way of doing a horror film. Everything is the lead up, everything is the something bad's going to happen and you better be ready for it because this is going to be terrible. And then the thing that happens is implied that it's horrible. It's not actually like we see in so many films today where somebody's get shredded and there's blood all over everything. And
Yeah.
we're like, oh, and you get used to that. Oh, okay, it's just more people blowing up and guts all over the camera. You know what I'm saying? Like this
Yes.
implied gore, right? You know
Yep.
that what's it called again? Gaviel is being munched upon by the tiger here, but we're not seeing flesh ripped up and that's where he allows for the viewer's imagination to have um, a little bit of involvement in this, I think.
Yeah. No, definitely. And he really makes this moment scary but beautiful because of the way he sculpted it.
Yeah, it's not it's not easy to look away from it because it is
Yeah,
so um, skilled.
definitely.
The merit,
So
yeah.
when we look back at that first image of the terracotta, and I said, I just love it because it's so loose and immediate. There's another artist that I feel in their finished work captured that. Like if you think about this piece called The Thinker by an artist named Rodin.
Hmm. So this was my hero today. Thank you for that
Yay.
intro. Ta-da! This
Do you
piece
like
is
my
actually
segue, by the way?
I
Did you like
did,
how I
I did.
segued?
I heard that, and this is not the one that's sitting out in front of the DIA, because you wouldn't see that building off to the right there. I don't know where this
That's
one
right.
is, but it does. it helps me to understand that these were cast, and he made a number of them, and they're larger than life. So this is Rodin. He was, working at the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century. Um, for me, what was most resonant for him was, yes, the power, the the way he exaggerated, the scale and the plasticity. Um, this stuff feels fluid to me, not rigid the way a lot of sculpture can look. And
Yeah.
that was what was really important to me was, I can very much feel that at some point, even though as a person who's looked at anatomy, I'm looking at this guy's forearm on his right arm. It's way too short for his upper arm.
Right.
Right, from my perspective, okay? And his left
Yeah.
hand looks really big. Um, it's all good. I don't care
Yep.
because what I'm getting is a person who is in love with the fluidity of muscle and
Yeah.
sinew, to use that word, and flesh. And I really get the feeling like this guy sitting in front of us, he's gonna flex. One of those muscles is gonna ripple at some point, you know?
I think this is the quintessential sculpture. If you want to pick one sculpture to connect to artists and sort of be this logo for artists and what the process of art is all about. It's the thinker, uh, the food that we feed into our mind through visual images, and then we meditate it, and then we bring it back out through our fingertips into a variety of media.
Yep.
And what you said about fluidity, I think when I look at this piece, I think I feel like this sculpture is being made as I'm looking at it. Like I feel like I
Mm.
can actually see surrounding this sculptor at work, working at a feverish pace so that he's reacting to the material and to the feeling of the pose. And I'm sure he had a model there that he was looking at just to sort of base stuff off of. But the clay was flying,
Yeah.
and the hair is probably the part that you can really recognize as he was working that way, because the hair is so different than the rest of the figure in terms of just kind of flopped on, but in a way where you feel like he just took a piece of clay and he just laid it there and then just pulled it a little bit, and he's like, there's my hair.
Yeah. And he could do that because I can accept that as the viewer because I can see the degree to which he understood everything else. It wasn't like,
Yes.
well, I don't know how to do hair. I'm just toss this on here. I don't give a crap. No, this was him saying, this is the expression of that hair. Meanwhile, I'm going to bust out this right foot and these toes grabbing onto the surface there. I mean, the stress of those tendons in his right foot is so palpable.
Yeah.
Like I said before, this guy is alive. I can feel life in him because
Hmm.
that means I'm experiencing the power that was in Rodin too.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
okay, I want to show this other one too. Is this the one? Yeah, okay. So again, this is another cast, and you can see by that this was done in casting because it has the outer I don't know enough of the language of casting, but you can see
Where
these,
the sprues the
yeah,
sprues
they
are
didn't sand it, they
connected.
didn't polish it all the way down to get rid of that. And I like
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're casting a piece like this, it's made out of first, you could make it out of clay, and then what they do is they make a mold in which they can turn that clay into wax.
Mm,
Then they take the wax and they build another mold around the wax, and they connect wax pieces that are skinny, and they all sort of come up to a cup. When you pour in the bronze, it goes through all these little passageways and leads to fill the whole thing, and the wax just burns out. And then you have to, like you said, grind and file all those things down so that the viewer doesn't see them. But here they're integrated, right? Like it's
He just
part
left,
of the mystique.
and it's beautiful. I love seeing those lines. One of the things too, in the same way in that we were seeing Barye,
Yes.
the what in the tradition was to kind of present the nobility of man prior to
Right.
impressionism and expressionism. And what I'm seeing with Rodin and the sculpture is that he's saying, no, these emotional experiences are as important as the nobility of soul. And
Yeah.
so this is noble. The pain experienced by this character is noble. And
Yeah.
therefore he was showing things that a lot of artists didn't, oh, no, we don't want to show, we want to show just that everybody is a child of nobility and therefore perfect. And so that's one of the things, is that it was okay to be messy with Rodin.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you say an artist has feeling, how can we say that about works like we're describing that don't have this kind of emotion to them? It's hard to. So here, when you say this artist had feeling, oh my gosh, totally. I mean, look at that emotion coming out of that facial expression.
Yeah, and so much of it is like the guy Rodin was just dripping with talent. He's just tossing it away. All right, we're almost done here. One, I just wanted to show this guy. This was a person in the French government in the late 1800s named Balzac, and he this was just like, I think, another study. Um, but it reminds me so much of Michelangelo's later work where he was just too tired to buff everything up. And this, I think, Rodin was still in his youth, so he wasn't too tired to do things. He was intentionally trying to talk about the expression of the energy in the character by the things that he left unpolished and the things that he polished. And so that's why I love this piece.
Yeah, well, I think, with works like this, it's taking us into or leading us into what we consider today to be modern art. When you go to the Museum of Modern Art in New York, people are surprised because, oh my gosh, there's so many impressionist works there, and they're thinking, oh, they're confusing the word contemporary and modern, right? When we say modern, we're talking about that period that is this. So as we take this sensibility of an artist like Rodin and bring it into the uh, soon to be 21st century, you're really starting to experience how all of these artists, like the German expressionists, the impressionists, and then into what we think of as like that wonderful abstraction period of the 50s and 60s. There's a departure of traditional approaches, a departure of what is expected. And here, this is the unexpected. And I think that's what's riveting about it.
Last thing I'll say too, Eugene, is that the reason why I find this unexpected and riveting too is because I know that he studied and understood anatomy to the degree that he did, and that understanding is still present in this. It's not just sort of saying, well, I don't need to know the rules. It's knowing the rules and then bending and breaking them where he feels he can. Um,
Absolutely.
as a teacher today, people studying can look at this and go, well, I can start here. I'm just going to start with not knowing or
Right.
appearance of, because I don't. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right, I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to say goodbye because we got to get out of here.
Hey, but this was a fun discussion about two great artists, Rodin and Barye.
Yeah.
I'm Eugene Clark.
I'm Matt Faulkner.
And this is Save World, Make Art. And don't forget, we have another workshop coming up. It's starting next week. So check the information below this video, and you too can join us on Zoom, sign up, and learn about drawing creature creation.
Do it now. Do it right now. I just hypnotize them. Okay, we're gonna cut out of here, and our theme.
Every little thing we do is magic. Da, na, 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 na. We like to make art, and we like sculpture, and we see all the beauty in the world.
Yeah.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands, and we're out.
All right, we're out. Bye, Mr. Faulkner. Have a great day.